This time, I'm only asking those VZAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a VZAC representative. As a reminder, please press your microphone button twice to turn on and off. Bruce Rosenwig,
Here.
Craig Pinder, Ted Goodenough, Joan Oliva,
Ted and John are excused.
Joanne Scaria,
Here.
Fadi Nassar,
Here.
Ryan Mugridge is excused, J.C. Beery,
Here.
David Willock,
Excused.
Casey Percrun,
Here.
Bruce Guyton,
Here.
Michael Owens, Christian Santa Gonzalez,
Here.
Joel Rosales,
Here.
Jermaine Swaby,
Here.
Tim Crespo, Clinton Williams,
Here.
Tracy Phelps,
Here.
Stephanie Thoborn,
Here.
Claudette De Los Santos, Catherine Wall is excused. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. So next item is the minutes from October 3rd. Since that was our last meeting, are there any changes to the minutes? And if not, can I get a motion? Mr. Guyton, is there a second?
I'll second.
Tracy?
Tracy got it.
Tracy beat you, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so the next item are general public comments and public comments on agenda items. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Staff, have we gotten any comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to reflect Mosey and Michael Owens both have joined the meeting at 9:34.
Hi, Mosey, Michael. Okay. And so then the next item is comments from, is that where comments from the chair and member comments. So does anybody on the board have any comments? I wasn't going to have any comments, but then I realized I was thinking on the way here, and then Tracy reminded me, you guys have been in the news lately. And it has been related to, we have an improvement on Indiantown Road where they're adding an additional turn lane. And they changed the intersection from at I-95 and Indiantown Road to put in a light and they removed the hot right. And so that was coming eastbound into Jupiter. So now we're sort of like the gardens at PGA, but not quite, because when they started the light up, they didn't have all the lanes built. So traffic was backed up all the way to Jupiter Farms Road, and it was taking people almost an hour to get from Jupiter Farms all the way into town to basically the intersection of where I work, Military and Indiantown Road. So it was interesting, but DOT, they moved quickly and they came out and did public comments and did a presentation on what they're doing. And they actually, that weekend, came out and paved the third lane, and things are moving smoothly. So that was great. A little media helped. So, but it was a little bit of a growing pain. So I just wanted to share. You didn't see it on the news.
We did. We heard about it.
Okay. Anybody else with any comments? Okay, if not, we can move on to the liaison report and Brian Ruscher. Our liaison will provide this update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two items that were not included on the liaison report. I'd like to provide a brief update to the committee on. First is a TPA staff update. So we'd like to welcome Sol Tangvik. Sol is our new planner 2 on the multimodal team. So she'll be working quite a bit with us on everything from transit, safe walking, safe biking, Vision Zero. So please, before you head out today, make a quick introduction to Sol. She comes to us from the city of Boston, where she was working in the mayor's office on another number of tactical urbanism projects, as well as a large background in communications and marketing, about a decade of experience. But she saw the light, got a degree from University of Utrecht in Netherlands. No. So very, very into our mission and vision. So much appreciate Sol joining us, and thank her for coming aboard. She started this week. We also have two brief award nominations, so or recipients. So we'd like to congratulate the City of Riviera Beach and Palm Beach County for receiving Safe Streets and Roads for All supplemental and planning grant allocation. So congratulations to Palm Beach County. It was $4.4 million, I believe, fighting this hour. Yep, it's great. And then Riviera received a planning grant as well for $200,000 that the TPA worked on assisting. We struck out on one other grant applicant that we were helping to work towards, but we're going to work on helping them in any way that we can for SS4A. So congratulations to the City of Riviera Beach and Palm Beach County.
Madam Chair, please note I'm a proud resident of Riviera Beach. I work for Palm Trad. That was just a little side note.
Great. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Bruce. Your town got some Safe Streets and Roads for All funding.
Yes.
So rolling on to the liaison report as it was printed and presented on the screen, we have the Transportation Alternatives Funding Program cycle that is now open. I have already scheduled a handful of TA pre-application meetings and held a few already. We are expecting a hefty number of applications that are going to come in this year, so much that we are looking at what projects might be eligible for either the local road safety program or other funding programs to do a little bit of a shuffle. We have about $5.1 million in funding. Every project that we've heard about so far is expected to request the maximum of 1.5 million. So realistically speaking, we could probably fund 3.5 projects through the TA program. We're trying to make sure that we make every project that we hear about whole this year. So if you are interested in scheduling a pre-application meeting, please let me know. We'll see what we can do to help you facilitate your funding for your projects and needs. We are also very excited to host the Safe Street Summit in West Palm Beach on February 6th and 7th. So we will actually not see you until the Safe Street Summit on the 6th and 7th, give or take, because our next VZAC meeting will be on February 6th. We're very excited that we're going to basically continue the programming of VZAC into the morning and then into the afternoon when we'll have mobile tours on the 6th. So if you're not registered yet for the Safe Street Summit, please do get registered. We're going to have everything from workshops to trainings, and we have speakers coming from all around the world to present to us on the 7th. We have additionally early bird registration is closing this month, as well as on the 18th, with awards closing shortly thereafter too. So if you have projects or people you would like to nominate, make sure that you're getting those in. You can get more details at the safestreetsummit.org website. This week is also Older Driver Awareness Safety Awareness Week. So this is a week where we try to reflect on and provide resources to learn about older drivers and how we can operate a road system that's safe with that type of person. So obviously in Palm Beach County, we do have a fair share of older drivers. So if you are so inclined, please make a point to share the information with your public information officers so that they can share something on your city's social media pages. It'd be very helpful to get the information out, especially in Palm Beach County. We have the Regional Long Range Transportation Plan update still underway. You can learn more at ceftech.org. And of course, we encourage you all, if you are not already signed up, to please go to the US DOT Grant Navigator, which is a resource that helps you sort through the federal transportation funding discretionary programs for which you can apply. And of course, do also subscribe to the TPA newsletter, because you will hear about grants, webinars, funding opportunities through that as well. So that, Madam Chair, my report is concluded.
Okay, and thanks. And I don't think we met officially Carly as well. So, because we didn't have a meeting last month. So welcome Carly and welcome Sol.
I'm gonna let Melissa actually do it.
Sure. Melissa Ebel, Public Relations Director. We have Carly with us, who's our new public involvement specialist. So you'll be seeing her quite a bit. She will be in all of these meetings helping with the virtual side of meetings on Zoom and any questions that you might have. So Carly, if you want to introduce yourself, you can. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
All right. So then the next items, are there any public
No, Madam Chair.
comments? Okay. Does the committee have any comments want to share? Nothing, Fadi? Okay. So then the next items are action items. And first is, I want to give, nominations. We want to open the floor. So it's election time. Election time. There are nominations for the chair. I'm currently the chair, and if you want me to serve, I will serve. If Tracy wants to serve, there's that open too. Tracy's the existing vice chair, but I'm happy to continue serving with that. Are there any nominations for chair?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I nominate you to remain as the chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Body?
I'll second that. If you need a second.
Third.
All right, all right.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Michael and Fadi and Mr. Guyton.
So we have a nomination from Bruce. Are there any other nominations? If not, you can close the nomination.
Okay, so no more?
Okay.
We can close nominations. Should we have a vote?
We can take a vote at the end for the slate
Okay,
if there's no competition for vice chair.
okay. And then, do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Madam,
Since there are no other nominations, you can do them together. If there is two competing nominations, you'll have to do a hand vote a voice vote for the two different candidates.
Any nominations I nominate Tracy for vice chair. Okay, that's two nominations. Any more nominations for vice chair? So, okay, so
Okay, so we have a slate of Stephanie being nominated by Bruce for the chair, and who nominated you?
I've nominated
And
Tracy.
you nominated Tracy. Thank you.
Yes,
and
Yes.
that was Bruce G.
Thank you, Bruce.
Mr. Guyton. Yes,
We have two Bruces.
that's
But
why I
now-
say Mr. Guyton.
You need a motion to entertain the slate of nominees as they
So
were
moved.
presented. Bruce Guyton, Mr. G. And second.
I'll second.
Christian.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 I vote for Tracy too. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. And I'm happy to get on my soapbox every now and then. Okay, so then now for some action items is the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. And Stuart Robertson from Kimley Horn and Associates is here to present this item.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the VZAC. My name is Stuart Robertson with Kimley Horn. We have been supporting the Palm Beach TPA and its stakeholders in the development of Vision 2050, which is the long-range transportation plan. You may have remembered at prior meetings of VZAC Our team or representatives from TPA staff have been here presenting various stages of the LRTP over the prior months. And now this presentation is the culmination of almost 2 years of effort by the TPA on the development of the 2050 plan. We have addressed comments received from the advisory committees, the board, and stakeholder agencies in the development of the plan since your October meeting. And we now present to you the final plan, which is included in your agenda packet. And staff are asking for a recommendation of approval of Vision 2050. So every MPO in the country participates in the LRTP process. The LRTP process is also a living document, although we do a major update every 5 years, which is what this update is part of. The document can be amended as necessary by the TPA governing board over time if new projects or new funding sources at the federal or state level become known. The document is required to meet federal and state regulations for urbanized area transportation planning, as well as to keep federal and state dollars flowing to Palm Beach County for transportation improvements. The document is intended to guide federal and state transportation funding and prioritization for projects within the county and serve as a pipeline for the development of projects to make it into the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, which is the 5-year work program for the construction of the projects that are planned in the LRTP. So some of the changes that we have made since the October meeting that we presented to you, the full draft of the LRTP, is that we have updated project costs and descriptions based on comments from stakeholders. We have moved the other local projects submitted during the call for projects process into the appendices. We've included an update to the scenario planning summary. This is where we use the travel demand model, the regional model, to provide some information as to what could be if certain types of investments are made. There were 3 scenarios that we modeled, including transit desires, which shows what travel flow would be like in the future if the entire transit desires plan were to be implemented. Autonomous and connected vehicles technology implementation, and also a scenario related to assumptions regarding telecommuting. All the appendices are available on the website and included as links for you in your agenda. So the timeline for the project, it has been an 18-month public-facing process with presentations to the advisory committees, as well as public workshops and pop-up events around the community to go out and get feedback on the project throughout the entire process. We are now at the end of the process with adoption due this month to federal and state agencies. So I want to speak a little bit about the prioritization process. It really started with a 2-tier approach on the left side of this slide in the left column. You see the multimodal needs analysis. That was a technical analysis conducted by our team for multimodal needs for walking, biking, transit, roadway, and technology improvements within Palm Beach County. And that was layered with the call for projects, where both state and local agencies submitted their project desires to the TPA for inclusion within the plan. So secondly, in the middle column, there was a project screening process where the needs and the desires were screened to be for their alignment with TPA goals and objectives. We also conducted cost estimates on the likely capital investment, as well as the operations and maintenance cost that would be inherent for implementing these projects. Developed basic scope items for the projects and went out for stakeholder input on all of these projects. There were over 1,300 projects that were identified in the needs and the desires process. And then moving your attention to the right side of this slide, there are 3 buckets shown on the right side, starting with cost feasible projects. These are projects that are anticipated to be available to be implemented through federal and state transportation sources. So if the various sources that are available at the state and federal level continue into the future, per the revenue forecasting that we conducted, working together with local implementation agencies as well as the Florida Department of Transportation and their revenue forecasting division and central office. If those revenues are projected forward into the future, the cost feasible projects are those that are expected to be implemented with federal or state funding throughout the horizon year of 2050 for this LRTP, with TPA attributable dollars. The blue bucket here are the illustrative projects. So those are projects that are consistent with TPA priorities, but are not anticipated to be available through conventional sources of funding. They could be implemented through other sources of funding, such as discretionary grants or other types of funding that could be pursued for these projects. But they are considered illustrative in this project because we have to analyze the project needs and desires and compare them to the revenue that is anticipated to be available through federal and state sources. And then finally, we have the other local projects. These are projects that were submitted as desired by agencies, but are not eligible currently for federal and state funding. If any one of those projects were to become eligible and were to receive state or federal funding in the future, the TPA could then amend the long-range transportation plan to add those projects into the LRTP for planning level consistency. So a bit more about the LRTP project sections. Another thing that I wanted to point out on this slide is that some of the cost feasible projects do include feasibility studies. So these are projects for which the TPA is anticipating that feasibility studies will be feasible within the anticipated revenue, but not all of the project phases for implementation are considered to be feasible, such as design or construction funding. So some of the projects are phased within the LRTP. I also want to highlight some of the new aspects to Vision 2050. So when looking at the TPA's current LRTP 2045 as the currently adopted LRTP, I want to highlight some of the new items that are expanded upon that and build upon and enhance the 2045 LRTP as we now evolve into Vision 2050. And one of those things is the short-term and long-term transit implementation plan. So in Vision 2050, the plan is to start with some basic elements of transit infrastructure and begin to build ridership over time with the goal of hopefully supporting more premium transit options in the future. So starting with things like funding bus shelter upgrades and new bus shelters at bus stops that don't currently have them. Then moving into the implementation of mobility on demand zones that are intended to connect people to transit stations. The implementation of express bus routes, working together with Palmtran. The lines in green on this map show express bus routes that are intended to connect population centers to destination centers and also to transit stations. Also, this map shows the implementation of new crosswalks that are near high ridership bus stations, areas that don't have marked crosswalks. So all of these things are intended to build ridership over time in the short term, moving toward a longer term vision by 2050 of having more premium transit elements. So some cities have already implemented mobility on demand zones, and the areas shown, the purple in this map, show additional ones of those. Also, we've identified the National Highway System as well as the 561 network as implementation for technology solutions that help both traffic flow as well as bus transit on these major corridors. Transit signal priority, for example, on the National Highway System and the 561 network. So moving on from transit and looking at some of the other modes of transportation that are highlighted in the Vision 2050 plan, we have refined the walking and biking network, shown as active transportation network within Vision 2050, to prioritize low-stress networks on the federal aid eligible network. Federal aid we covered in your October meeting. You may remember that those are the roadways that are eligible for federal transportation funding. It includes the state highway system and many major local roads as well. We've also identified freight activity areas for investment in better connections for moving freight, transportation, and getting goods to where people are. Electric and alternative fuel corridors, which open up possibilities for grant funding related to infrastructure for these technologies. And we've identified several feasibility studies, including complete streets corridor studies, a few of which are underway. You may remember the US1 multimodal corridor study, and several municipalities are in implementation plans for US1, including in Boca Raton with the implementation of the lane repurposing project from Southeast Meisner to Camino Real. Other cities are involved in those as well. SunTrail feasibility studies to complete the FDOT SunTrail network from South County all the way to North County. Freight studies such as the US 27 rail corridor study, looking at putting freight rail on US 27 and trying to help relieve some congestion on the eastern rail corridors and maybe try to prioritize those more for people transportation. Infrastructure resilience as well is another example. There's a State Road A1A resiliency study included as a phased implementation feasibility study within the plan. So some of the maps, these are just 3 examples of the map series that you can find within the draft LRTP, starting with the ITS corridors on the left. This is the map that appears in the draft. We've actually updated this map based on comments from the Technical Advisory Committee to include the county's Arterial Management Plan, or AMP. The center map here includes the freight activity areas, and the map on the right include the alternative fuel corridors that are eligible for funding of charging stations and other infrastructure related to the implementation of alternative fuels for vehicles. I also want to briefly talk about the process of going from a concept within the LRTP to implementation on the ground, because that's really what it's all about, is implementing the projects that we plan for within the LRTP. So this is the TPA process for implementing projects from the LRTP. It starts with a project being identified in the LRTP in either the cost feasible or illustrative plan. The next step would be for the TPA governing board to identify one of these projects on its list of priority projects, or LOPP. This is a document that the TPA governing board adopts annually to communicate local priorities to federal and state funding agencies. So once a project is identified on the LOPP, it is considered to be prioritized by the TPA. Those projects that are prioritized are then considered for implementation within the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. Again, that's the 5-year work program when a project does become funded for implementation. So only if the project appears in the TIP is it considered to be funded for a phase of implementation. So that wraps up my summary of the Vision 2050 LRTP. I would be happy to address any questions or comments that you may have. And again, the TPA staff are looking for a motion to recommend adoption to the governing board. I do want to mention one other thing. I meant to mention it on the active transportation section. There is a table on page 11 of the draft that shows mileage of facilities. And it shows separated bicycle lanes as having, I think, 1.3 miles of implementation. Based on a comment from one of the other committees, we've reviewed that mileage and added to it the local streets that have implemented separated bicycle lanes. And it's now almost 10 miles of separated bicycle lanes that have been implemented in Palm Beach County. So this is another example of comments that we receive from advisory committees, really helping us to sharpen our pencils and have the most accurate information within the LRTP before it goes to the governing board for their adoption next week. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So yeah, I would be happy to address any questions or comments that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Before we do that, are there any public comments? Ruth?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the committee body? And then I see you, Mr. Guyton. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thanks, Stuart. I know this is a big undertaking, Vision 2050. And, in the past, when I used to work on the regional model, I know how difficult it is to predict things, especially now that transportation is changing in a very fast way. I know you mentioned a number of things. I think the scenario, the multimodal, autonomous driving, and telecommuting. One thing have changed is that we're probably going to be changing even more is that the old concept, of these kind of long transit line, premium transit line, whatever you want to call it, it's limited how many people can attract. You really need to open attraction to, choice riders. And I know I mentioned in the past, something like multi-level interceptor parking, on Okeechobee between I-95 and Australian, linked to some kind of autonomous, maybe bus or people mover, like people mover in Miami. That would attract a lot of people who come on I-95 to leave their car there and just use it to come to downtown, really relieving congestion in downtown. The other thing is, I really think there should be an emphasis on travel time. And this should be balanced with multimodal. And I haven't seen that, it's great that, we can project things, we can provide all kind of facilities, but I think travel time should be important. And personally, I feel like, connecting Roebuck Drive provides something parallel to Okeechobee. It's really important, even if West Palm Beach object to it. We need to look at the whole concept, the whole network and figure out where we have traffic issues and what kind of solution we need to provide to improve travel for the majority of people. And I think the last item is that I really believe autonomous driving and, especially implemented for buses, it's going to be probably the shorter route, more demand-oriented route than the old concept of providing very long transit connection. I feel that's going to be the future. And that's going to really attract people outside the transit-dependent community and really make a difference. Because if you double existing transit today, you're only going from 2% to 4%. It's not going to make any impact on traffic. You really have to go to the choice riders. But I understand, it's not an easy thing to project traffic in 2050. And I've been working on this model. I know their shortcomings. And I know even what we think a couple of years ago, that telecommuting will be a big issue. Now we realize it's not going to be as important as we used to think. But I appreciate, what you're doing. And I know you're using the best tools. But I still hope that you can focus a little bit more on travel time and on autonomous driving applied to transit for short route on demand. and the last mile, with electric bike, electric scooter, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you for that very insightful feedback, Fadi. And I agree with what you're saying about choice riders, about on-demand travel being the way that transportation does seem to be going, especially for short trips. And I think that in part is why we have focused on, in this plan, identifying mobility on demand zones and also express bus routes to focus on in terms of the short-term implementation for transit. And I think micromobility plays a part in that as well, especially within our densest urban core areas, for helping to reduce the number of car trips on networks in those areas. So really appreciate your feedback, and the LRTP is moving in that direction as you have suggested. Thank you.
Mr. Guyton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative, that summary was. But I have two questions. One is regarding the prioritization process. You indicated in the multimodal needs section that a technical analysis was done to determine the needs. In a nutshell, what did that analysis consist of?
It was identifying need as well as the demand. So need was based on a demographic analysis, and demand was based on travel flow patterns, trying to identify what are the highest potential ridership areas, primarily for multimodal transportation. So transit, walking, and biking. And then investing our resources in those areas where we felt like there was the highest propensity for walking, bicycling, and public transportation. So it was sort of a technical overlay that was meant to supplement the agency's call for projects.
Okay, thank you. The last question I have, there was a reference to sun trails. I'm not familiar with that, and forgive my naivety, my naivety. What is that?
Oh, forgive me for not explaining it in more detail as I should have. SunTrail stands for Shared Use Non-Motorized Trail System. It is a program of the Florida Department of Transportation that identifies trail corridors statewide. 3 primary trails, one of which is the East Coast Greenway that passes directly through our county, and then other supplementary trails that make connections to those 3 primary trails. So the East Coast Greenway is our primary focus here in Palm Beach County. So projects that are on the SunTrail network as identified by FDOT and that pass through many of our eastern communities, those projects are prioritized within the LRTP. It would be for implementing a minimum of a 10-foot wide shared use path through those communities. An example of a SunTrail facility, the Jupiter Riverwalk is on the SunTrail, and also the shared use path in Boca Raton along State Road A1A on the west side of A1A south of Palmetto Park Road is also on the SunTrail network. So those are 2 examples that have already been implemented. There are others as well. Apologize if I left your community out. But there are also a lot of gaps in the SunTrail that we need to fill in to have better mobility, not only for our own residents, but there are also a lot of people that travel the East Coast Greenway throughout the nation. You can go from Key West all the way to the Canadian border on the East Coast Greenway. So the East Coast Greenway is the national alliance of trail projects. FDOT, Florida DOT, participates in that with identifying the SunTrail corridor along the East Coast Greenway alignment as one of its 3 major trail corridors across the state within SunTrail. So the TPA values the SunTrail, has done implementation plans supporting municipalities in their efforts to implement projects on the SunTrail, and also coordinates with FDOT on projects that it is implementing on the state highway system, such as State Road A1A, that include SunTrail components.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. That's it.
Bruce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for your presentation. Of the total funding for all these projects, what percentage is is given by the federal government?
That's a good question that I'm sorry, I don't have the precise answer off of the top of my head. I don't know if maybe TPA staff would have a relevant answer to that percentage.
So for, yep, so what Andrew is mentioning from the audience, Andrew Euler, Deputy Director of Programs, is that about a third of the funding that's allocated over any particular time band comes from federal sources. So you can take that, and it varies largely by projects and types of projects. So if you look at capacity projects, there might be a substantial allocation based off of the US highway system. State system will vary based on what is strategic intermodal system. Turnpike also is considered its own funding revenue sources and streams that we have to consider too. So it varies quite a bit. But if you're interested and want to dive a little bit more into it, we can schedule a follow-up and we can show you some of the forecasted revenues and expenditures.
Okay. In that you mentioned forecasted revenues or funding from the federal government, without getting political, in that there's a change in administration soon to come, and it's been a short window since the election. Has consideration been given to how funding may change, given any change in administration? This is over a 25-year period we're looking at. How is it factored in, if it's factored in?
Yeah. So of course, as you mentioned, over a 25-year period, there will be several of these political cycles. Generally speaking, formula dollars for federal funding tends to remain relatively constant, I think, over time. There could be some changes in the philosophy related to discretionary funding of certain transportation federal grants as to what those grants are aimed toward. But what we find from looking at past history is that formula dollars, which comprise the federal and state transportation funding that is appropriate to consider within this plan, not discretionary dollars, the formula dollars tend to remain relatively constant in terms of their percentage allocated to regions by population. So those are the funding that we are including within the LRTP. There could be changes to the philosophy related to federal discretionary funds, but that would be yet to be seen.
And these federal funds, do they come directly from congressional vote, or is it filtered through the Federal Department of Transportation?
I think through USDOT.
So it's a question of discretionary and then formula, and I believe the secretary also has programs that he has the ability. But for the most part, what Stuart is speaking to is that we operate off of a surface transportation block grant, and those block grants are based off of a formula allocation for our population. So Miami-Dade gets a certain percentage, Broward gets a certain percentage. Those funding programs are not necessarily protected or shielded, but they have less exposure to national political swings and philosophy. Discretionary programs, such as those where you have to go after, let's say, like a Safe Streets and Roads for All, or anything related to, let's say, like the RAISE program, the Resilient America program, that's changed a handful of times over the past few presidential cycles. So not to say that the funding philosophies won't change over a short period of time, but the overall formula funds are approved by Congress. They're approved just like any other budget cycle. And then there's a formula allocation that's developed by the FHWA in coordination with its partners, Census Bureau and others, to allocate the funding by block grant. I hope that clarifies. I know it's a tricky question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. Anybody else? Okay, Joey.
I would just like to say thank you for the presentation, Stuart, and I would like to extend my thanks to the TPA staff for the early and proactive coordination on the projects that were included in the LRTP. And it was a good process. I appreciate the time that was spent addressing the questions and concerns that we had in Gardens, and I am pleased with the result. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I just had a couple of things on the, so on the travel time metrics, how do you see, if those were included, how do you see that the travel time be used specifically? I mean, would that be and maybe it's anybody, not just you, Fadi, but just trying to understand how someone's commute would be used to as data. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me be a little bit more specific. I'm probably much more concerned about repurposing lanes. Yeah, I mean, you can take one lane on Okeechobee, provide express bus, dedicated express bus. Yeah, you probably will help 100 persons better ride the bus, but you'll make it miserable for the rest of the people. So especially in those cases, when you want to repurpose a lane, you need to figure out the overall travel impact on everybody using that, transit and non-transit. And also, for improvement, uh, you know, delays is not linear. When you get close to capacity, a 5% increase in demand will give you 20, 30, 40% increase in delays. So this critical point, they can be fixed by parallel improvement, by other things. And this is, I think, the purpose of the, when you do regional network analysis, figure out very critical point and what other improvements you need. This is why I mentioned, for example, extending Roebuck parallel to Okeechobee is something will help enormously both Palm Beach County and the city of West Palm Beach. But, some other consideration, probably this may be difficult. However, for 2050 vision, you need to incorporate those.
I gotcha, understood. I think your point related to choice ridership as well, related to, how you might implement, or it becomes a trigger for more multimodal opportunities as well. And so, as I understand the point, particularly on Okeechobee, and that's the same kind of idea of bringing transit to areas that are not land use appropriate is more of the issue that we have here in our area. Downtown West Palm, places like Boca are even getting more dense, but in Jupiter, we're not. Gardens is a little bit more dense than us, but we having transit or repurposing a lane may not be as appropriate. But I think one of the things for just visioning is the inclusion of trails, and like for us, we've put a lot into Sun Trail, our river walk. We've put in for Sun Trail, just kind of, we don't have it implemented yet. And, but it's a great program along US 1. So, if Riviera Beach, you can talk to folks along there, Sun Trail would be an appropriate place for us to get that use, because I see, when you see other places that have the land use patterns that are more suburban, not as dense, it is not appropriate to have such a, high investment transit system that doesn't serve a lot of people. Having the trains, if you look at Europe as a model, the little areas that are further out have trains, but then they only have so many stops, like Tri-Rail and Brightline. Like, we don't want Brightline, but we're happy to have the Gardens to have Brightline, and that's not that far, and it's fine. But I want to, if in the future, in the next year or 5 years, and you're looking at travel times, I mean, I think travel times is also an appropriate measurement, as an indicator for, oh, well, we need more trails as well. And, some of those trails can become this incredible opportunity that links these outer communities through a beautiful park-like setting that I know we've talked about previously. you know, and if you have the vision of doing that a long time ago, then you have that system in place. And we're very lucky. We've got some of those systems, but we still need to get our connection out to the lake trail and underneath the turnpike. So having those visions in your community is really important. I just wanted to touch on choice because you know, I see Palm Tran in my neighborhood. I have you know, I live in a single family detached house and I see that Palm Tran, he comes into our neighborhood and it's like clockwork. Twice a week, he comes and picks somebody up and it's very efficient, you know, it's very efficient and it's handling the people who need it. And so more of those, Bruce, we need more of those on-demand ridership. So anyways, thank you. I appreciate the work and coming back and going through it again. And if we have no further, oh, I see, sorry, Jermaine.
It's okay. Thanks again for the presentation, and it's great to have talks renewed about the multimodal transportation and options, and hopefully, you know, we could have continued conversations to improve the attractiveness of those alternate modes of transportation. Otherwise, you know, on a side note, as some of you know, this does include state road expansion, which City of West Palm is opposed to because of the potential for the effect on our water preserve. So for that, I'll have to oppose on the motion.
Okay. Can always rely on West Palm. Well, thank you. If there isn't anybody else, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend the adoption of the 2050 plan.
Okay,
Second.
Christian and Joanne, the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? One nay from West Palm. Thank you. We'll go to the next item, which is the fiscal year 2026 through 2030 draft tentative work program for FDOT. And Andrew Euler, Deputy Director of Programs, will present this item. Welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays. So this is the draft tentative work program. We actually have a lot of neat items on the agenda today, all the ones I really enjoy. I really enjoy this one as well. I'm just going to give a quick update about what we're seeing as staff in the LRTP or the draft tentative work program. FDOT was not able to be here for their presentation. I'm going to do a little bit of the slides on their presentation as well, since they go a little bit more in detail about what we do in Palm Beach County. And then we can take any questions. So the draft tentative work program, this is one of those major steps as we move towards our transportation improvement program. We're currently operating under fiscal year 25 through 29. This is for 26 through 30. And so this starts all the way back with product development last year. So we're always in this cycle of going towards our next work program, our next transportation improvement program. So in the product development part of the process, which happened late last year into spring of this year, we're looking at the long range transportation plan projects for 2045, pulling things from there. We're also considering those applications that are received for our grant programs, the one you're most familiar with, transportation alternatives. Those are all being reviewed for feasibility with FDOT and our partners. Those are then ranked and provided in that list of priority projects. So that list of priority projects, which includes our major projects, local initiatives, transportation alternatives, and SunTrail, goes to the governing board for adoption in July. So that happened in July 2024. And then that is submitted to FDOT. FDOT then updates the cost estimates for the current work program for all those phases for right-of-way and construction. And then they also have updated revenue projections, and then they rebalance the work program, and they add in all the other additional priorities we have that they're able to fund through the list of priority projects, anything that the state is also doing through their other discretionary programs at the statewide level. And then they're also including any other TPA or FDOT priorities they have. So that all comes together, and that's what you're seeing today in the draft 10 of work program. Once we provide our feedback to them on this work program, they then go towards a final version of the work program heading into next year, and that's what serves as the basis of the Transportation Improvement Program, which will be adopted in June, starts effective July 1st of next year. So what's in the draft 10 of work program? It's the list of products by phase and funding sources for federal and state funds over the next 5 years. Again, we're currently in fiscal year 25. The document before you today is 26 to 30. And then you'll sometimes hear the phrase, the new fifth year. That's always the outer year of the work program. Most funding throughout the 5 years is programmed already. And then it's that new fifth year where there's mostly the available funding to program products and phases. So that's typically where you see new products fall, is in that new fifth year. There are exceptions to that. For example, the Transportation Alternatives Program is set aside. So that's a 3-year time band. So there is, you don't really typically see things in the outer fifth year, but most programs and funding go in the new fifth year. So the products in the work program, many of the more complex ones will have multiple phases throughout multiple years. And it's all products working through the pipeline of the work program and product development of these projects. So it could go through design, which could take 1 or 2 years, into right-of-way if it's required, utilities, environment, and then construction. So what you'll hear a lot of times from FDOT is trying to maintain work program stability. And so what they mean by that is when they're gearing up for a new work program cycle and they're getting new cost estimates in for the current program and new revenue forecasts, they're trying to ensure the stability of the current work program. So things continue going through that pipeline of all these phases, and they're trying to keep all those products on schedule. And then after they do that, then they're trying to really work in the new priorities in the outer years. So what we're seeing in the work program, just for a summary, from our analysis was a lot of the funding going towards strategic intermodal system, and this happens every year. There's $3.2 billion overall in federal and state funds in Palm Beach County, 280 projects. The SIS capacity projects, with the majority being turnpike funds, turnpike revenues spent on the turnpike system. But what you'll see over the next 5 years is a large amount of turnpike projects. Alone here, I see for the turnpike in our area for Palm Beach County, it's going to be $1.3 billion over the next 5 years. And they actually added one new project I want to mention for construction, which is, I had it listed here. I thought I had it listed here. 1 second. It's going to be PJ Boulevard up into Martin County line. And they provided a feedback. Okay, PJ Boulevard up to north of Jupiter. It's going to be construction in 2029. That's a new phase they're adding for $300 million to widen to 6 lanes. So that is one of the new ones for construction in the 5-year program, but they have other ones throughout the county they're already going to construction to now or in the next 5 years. And then for summary of TPA priorities, so these are the ones that you'd see in the list of priority projects list. And this is provided in the backup in those tables. There's $442 million of federal and state investment over the next 5 years on these projects. We're breaking down sort of where those are occurring overall in general categories. $245 million towards roadway capacity. That is State Road 7 and Atlantic Avenue. Those do also include pedestrian and bicycle facilities on those facilities, but the overall work mix, work type for that product is road capacity. And then the other ones are complete streets. So pedestrian and bicycle facilities, safety improvements as well can be in those. $82 million towards that. A lot of the submittals we get from local jurisdictions and also how it aligns with the LRTP go towards these type of improvements. So we see a large funding source towards complete streets. Then we have signals and intersections. There's a lot of submittals from both Boca Raton in Palm Beach County when it comes to upgrading signals and hardening signals and providing new technology, $53 million towards that. And then we have many submittals from SFRTA and PalmTran when it comes to new vehicles. For PalmTran, it's electric buses. For SFRTA, it's new rail cars. And then PalmTran also has a whole plan for shelters they're rolling out and getting work on new shelters and rehabbing existing shelters. So that was the TPA's just high-level summary. I'm going to ask Ruth to switch real quick to the AFDOT summary. And I'm just going to say a few words on those because they get a little bit more into specifics on the TPA priorities that are new to the program for phases. And the TPA priorities, again, are broken down into major projects, local initiatives, and transportation alternatives. And for major projects, these are just highlights for something that's new. So it's not anything that's existing in the current program. These are all updates to existing phases. So first one is US 1 and West Palm Beach, complete streets, constructions in the outer year, fiscal year 30. Working on a State Road 80 bypass, feasibility study still out in the Glades community that's ongoing, but there's some preliminary PD&E in fiscal year 30. Lake Worth Road, transit signal priority, $1 million towards that in fiscal year 25. And then here's getting into the sort of those Boca Raton products for intersections. US 1 at Spanish River, construction in fiscal year 30. 3 intersection projects by the county, construction fiscal year 30. And then we have Boca Raton signal upgrades, starting to get all these products in for construction in the new 5th year, fiscal year 30. Same for those. And then lastly, Indian Town Road at Central Boulevard. We heard about some of the improvements that are going on short term right now from our chair. There's also a PD&E for displaced left turn at Central Boulevard on Indian Town Road. The PD&E for that has advanced from fiscal year 29 to fiscal year 26. So looking to start that feasibility study early on that intersection. Then getting into local initiatives. Again, all these are coming out in that new 5th year, fiscal year 30. So able to fund more signals and ITS technology for Boca Raton, 7th Street and West Palm Beach, tri-rail service rolling stock, upgrades for Palm Beach County's traffic signals, Wellington Trace sidewalks and roundabout, Palm Street construction in fiscal year 28. Oh, sorry, we're moving to transportation alternatives now. My apologies. So this is the program for the ones that were submitted last year that are now in the draft tenant work program as funded in the 3rd year, fiscal year 28. And that includes in order Palm Street, Northwest 2nd Ave, and then East Camino Real. So those are the new ones in the transportation alternatives list. And then lastly, outside of the direct formula funding, which is most of the ones you just saw, there are additional ones that AFDOT mentioned to us. Here's a federal earmark for PalmTran bus shelters. So they're already getting a lot of funds through the TPA, what we prioritize for bus shelter expansion. They received additional funds through a federal earmark for $500,000 in fiscal year 26. And then there's a new product in the program for design and construction in fiscal year 30 for Congress Ave, I-95 at Congress Ave, corporate drive truck parking. And that's coming in for fiscal year 30. Okay. That's all I really have for you. There is obviously we're seeing it through the committees and the board for the TPA, but then the district itself, District 4, has the work program public hearing, which is going to be held online and in person. That's going to be next week on December 10th at 6:30 p.m. And that's all I have for you.
Thanks, Andrew. Do we have any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone from body? If you could want to go ahead.
Yeah, just one question about truck parking. I know we have a lot of issue within the county with trucks parking all over the places. And when I spoke with, PBSO and the officers, they say whatever citation they get is much, much cheaper than having them to go and find and pay for parking. Are we looking at this kind of countywide, making sure we have adequate parking location for these trucks?
I know that FDOT has looked at a little bit when it comes to where that demand is located in potential facilities. And so when we hear about those, we try to coordinate with them on where those could go. But I haven't, we haven't gotten too much into details on that. We something to follow up with. I'm not sure if the county's doing any work on that or, but also what you're saying about it's fascinating too about, I'm wondering about the enforcement if we can see where those ticket violations are, if that's a.
Yeah, I mean, what the officer said that the citation is $40, which is cheaper for the trucker to pay it than to go and find actual parking. So maybe on the ordinance side, we need to come up with something where, for multiple offender, this is going to be much, much higher. But I guess ultimately you need to have adequate parking within the
Right.
county to accommodate, those truckers. I know there are some places, along the freeways, but maybe there should be something, just incorporate it into your, what the county needs.
That's good. That's a good point. Thank you, Fadi.
Joanne?
Thank you for the presentation, Andrew. I echo your sentiment. This is an exciting meeting. We're not just voting on the LRTP, but also the tentative work program. I have a question on the LI table, and I apologize if I missed this report during a previous meeting that I was not in attendance, but for the Gardens, Palm Beach Gardens project on Gardens Parkway, I see that there are construction funding dollars now, and that was previously an unfunded project. Is that an update?
Gardens Parkway from A1 into Prosperity Farms.
Yes.
I don't see it as an unfunded from before. It shows funded in fiscal year 27.
Mhm.
So we can check for you. But obviously if you weren't aware of it and it's occurring soon, so we would have to get going on design very soon. 'Cause
Yes, exactly. No, that's very exciting. It's a positive change.
we'll follow up with you because if that's the case, Gardens Parkway, since funding's in fiscal year 27, that means design should be happening around now. So we'll follow up with you and
I'll check in with our engineering department. Maybe they're aware, but I was not aware. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Tracy?
Could you click on your microphone, please? Thank you. Double tap, please. Thank you.
I'm interested in one of the projects. E-3, the signal project upgrade in both of them. See that somebody was added right-of-way cost. That was never. Did it go? Oh, that's what it was. Somebody's added right-of-way cost to that project. I was wondering
Sure.
why and when and who.
Yep,
'Cause I
so-
designed concepts for these signals and I don't know, per my designs, there was no right of way needed for any of them.
That's a good point. It was both the Boca Raton ones and the Palm Beach County ones. There are ones that we've been notified that the right of way is required, and that's why you're seeing it pop up here. And so the product manager on the FDOT side or whoever they had review it determined there's a right of way need. So we'll have to follow up with you, also with Palm Beach County on theirs because they had some right of way pop up in some of theirs as well. So we'll follow up with you on those.
Okay, I'm sure, I think it's 26, they start design, so I'm sure we'll hear from them.
Yep, looks like design starting next year. So yeah, you are correct that maybe a little bit more will get fleshed out through that. But their initial look at it looks like they put right away on there.
And just one other quick question. I was wondering how they are going to get access in and out of that freight parking lot at Congress and
Sure, we were just made aware of that product, so we don't know too many details. But we can look more into that.
We'll pull up the diagram really quickly. I think that access is taken from Congress Avenue. Yep, right here. So it's placed behind the storage building site, but the access is taken from Congress Avenue. And it looks like it's an unsignalized intersection off of Congress. So
Yeah.
from 95, you would turn westbound on Peninsula Corporate Drive, northbound on Congress Avenue, and then a right into the facility, or approaching from the north on Congress, you would turn left into that site as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a left in now. I don't think you can make a right out or left out.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Is that
Okay.
something you would like for us to follow up on and make that note to DOT? We can schedule a coordination meeting with you if you'd like.
I don't like that access, but it will be what it is.
Okay, thank you.
They can't make U-turns either on Congress.
Most of
anywhere.
the designs in 27, so we got some time on that one. So.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy. Anybody else? I have comment and question. So the $1 billion turnpike expansion from PGA to Martin County that's coming up and has been programmed. When we had talked about this a couple years back, I recall us doing a resolution, this committee doing a resolution that was hopefully sent to the Turnpike Authority regarding the need for east-west access for trails, for bicycle, pedestrian trails, because the Turnpike, and if you have the Turnpike in your community, go try to walk under it like I did. And because it was built so long ago, in the 60s, late 50s, in our area, it is really low, and it does not afford the ability for bicycles, or even someone of my height can walk under it. It's about 3 feet above the top of bank. And so that's what's preventing us from getting out to the lake trail. So if we could connect our greenway system, our open spaces, and get out to Riverbend Park and under the turnpike, I-95 is 30 feet up in the air. Plenty of room to get bicycles, pedestrians under there, but the turnpike is not. So I know we did a resolution, and I was hoping we could maybe do a new resolution or an updated resolution, or pull out that resolution and show it to them again, so that not just Jupiter's community, I don't know about how the turnpike is in the gardens, but what conflicts or what major roadblocks there are. Because if we could go from the lake all the way to the beach and connect with Sun Trail, maybe we wouldn't have to wait at that new light at the intersection. So if we could look and see where that is, and maybe maybe at an upcoming meeting, we could bring it up, when there's a discussion, because they're going to be spending $1 billion on that improvement. And how are they going to address those communities that have expanded beyond the turnpike and providing that connectivity for the future? So if you guys can just get with us later, sometime next year, that would be great, because then we would be able to plan out some of these improvements. And I don't know if it's an overpass with bike ped, or if they're actually going to want to, raise that section of the turnpike up so that it's higher than it is today.
I respond, and then Brian can follow up. I know Victoria Williams, who's the liaison for the Turnpike, it's on her mind about it. She's brought it up to us recently, actually, past couple months. And so, but we can freshen up and talk to them and their designers, especially related to these products coming up here pretty soon, and then bring it back up to the VZAC. Sure, Brian, if you had anything to
And
add.
as a notice of the committee in November of 2023, when this discussion was ongoing before, we provided Victoria and James, our Turnpike liaisons to the TPA, with our regional greenways and trails plan map that was created, I want to say in 2016 to 2018, somewhere thereabouts. But nevertheless, when the Turnpike does go through design, they do approach each of the communities that are along their system and they ask, what is your plan for connectivity? So if these are not already reflected in your local plans, they should be. If they're not, then you need to get them into your comprehensive plan and likely your transportation plan element map for planning consistency. The Turnpike will not base improvements solely off what the TPA is providing. It's a great vision, but it doesn't actually reflect what the local desires are. So if it's not in the aforementioned plans that I just referenced, or a pedestrian and bicycle master plan or otherwise, you will need to get that into those plans for them to consider it as a legitimate project. So just wanted to provide that feedback as well. Happy to engage in this process when it gets closer to the design phase, because that will be something that is necessary to bring up to them again.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else? Any more discussion on this item, the draft tentative work program? Okay. Did I do public comment? Okay.
But no, we don't have anything.
Okay. And with that, if there's no further discussion, can we get a motion on
So move.
Mr. Guyton? Is there a
Second.
second? Tracy, second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then,
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So yes, this does include a TIP. So for that reason, I have to oppose.
all those opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so the next item are informational items, and Jessica Vargas Astasia is,
Agenda before publishing, so we'll have to table item 3A.
okay.
Those of you, just to provide a little bit more information, thank you, Ruth, is the SFRTA has published a update to their transit development plan. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I encourage you all to go to sfrta.org and view the plan there. This is a fairly straightforward 10-year plan that must be developed by transit operators in the state, and it's to coordinate the capital plans of the SFRTA with the long-range transportation plan and the TIP from the TPA. So that's the primary update and function. Thank you.
Okay. So then. Oh, okay. So are we doing the Safe Streets update now?
Yes, Madam Chair, there should be a agenda item PDF. So just to provide periodic updates on the committee with respect to the Safe Streets and Roads for All progress grants and the development of comprehensive safety action plans. I already mentioned it's under the agenda. I'd already mentioned the awards provided to the Palm Beach County Engineering Division for flashing yellow arrows and the planning grant for the city of Riviera Beach. Wanted to open the floor and provide the opportunity to anyone to give stakeholder updates. I see that Green Acres and Palm Springs have recently kicked off their plan, as well as the city of Boca Raton, with respect to the ongoing activities and grant. So with the agenda packet and shown on the screen are websites for their respective agencies and where you can find more information about the statuses of their plans. Really proud to have crossed the $10 million threshold. We're now at 11.3 million countywide. So I believe that a few of us have ongoing updates that can be provided. So I would like to open the floor to you to lead a discussion if you'd like. Thank you.
Tracy?
No.
I'm just having no luck with these things today.
That was the one he had
Okay.
before. It's working.
We had our first public hearing, November, in November. And I believe we have another one scheduled for January or February, late January or early February, our second one. We had a update meeting last week or the week before. I had some questions with our consultant. We wanted some more in-depth data on the crashes that they had on their analysis, and they were going to get back to us on that. And it looks like we're still hoping to be done by between March and May of next year. But we have had our first public meeting. It was well attended, and had a lot of public comment. So we're moving on in the process.
Thank you. Tracy.
Thanks. Well, I don't have one because I gave you mine, so I wanted to recognize Joanne, who wanted to go next. Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to provide an update that we have a consultant on board, and we actually had our kickoff meeting yesterday. So we're in the early stages of our plan development journey, but we'll have surveying in January, and we'll proceed from there. We're aiming to adopt the plan end of summer and maybe beginning of fall, somewhere around that time frame.
Great.
Thank you.
Fadi, I see you.
Yes, we had the kickoff meeting last month, and basically, first of all, we're happy to have our consultant, both Kittleson and their sub, Kimberly Horn. So we basically starting the process right now. And I want to mention that I attended, the Boca meeting, and I'm also going to be attending later on today, West Palm Beach. And when we start our own public meeting, we're going to be inviting the other cities. So we just going to encourage everyone to communicate, and whoever want to reach out to us, we're more than happy to work with you.
And you got $4 million.
Yeah, this contract is really for implementing flashing yellow arrow. Just briefly, flashing yellow arrow have a lot of benefit. Basically, they can allow us, first of all, to have what we call time of day protected permissive movement. So for example, if we think during peak hours, it's difficult to make a left turn on a permissive phase, then we can make it only protected. That's going to be a safety issue. The other benefit is that we can make it work with the pedestrian signal call. So for example, if you have a pedestrian call and then you have a permissive left, then we can make it only protected, so that there won't be conflict between pedestrian and the left turn movement. And we get also planning to implement for the first time flashing yellow arrow for the right turn, and that's also going to have going to be beneficial for pedestrian and also for reducing those right turn crashes. So we have implemented a few of them in the past, and we're happy that contract will allow us to do, I don't know, maybe like 20 additional ones. And we're looking also for additional funding to really have it implemented throughout the county. The more we have them, the more people can familiar how they operate, and they have both operational benefit and safety benefit.
Thanks, Fadi. Anybody else? Clint, any updates from Delray? Double press. There you go.
We got the commission approval. We've sent it for finalization to the FHWA. We're hoping to do RFQ January, February timeframe and get on the road from there. I think we're looking in the year next year if we get the RFQ on time to hopefully be getting ours approved as well.
Great. Sounds good. Jupiter, unfortunately, we did not get the Save Streets grant, but we have Sun Trail, so we got to be happy for what we, because that's a very important thing for us. But we're happy to, try again next year, and we've got our application ready so we can update the numbers and keep moving. And I look forward to hearing everybody else's story and processes, because I know it can be a big ordeal. So it's a lot to bite off and start. So, there's goods and bads of all of that. Our goods is we can wait a little bit. So, but with that, I think, anybody else want to talk about their Safe Streets grants?
I have
Okay.
a safety-related discussion item, just briefly. Announcement, it's not on the agenda. It should have actually been included on the liaison report. So we're really proud to have partnered with the Healthcare District of Palm Beach County. The Florida Department of Transportation will be doing an e-bike and e-scooter safety series over this month and next month. We are hosting our first event at REI in Boca Raton next Saturday, which is the 14th, thank you, at 2 o'clock. And we're really excited to have this event because it presents the TPA the ability to bring e-scooters to REI. REI already has e-bikes to test on site. So we actually can demonstrate how e-bikes are different and how e-scooters are different from regular kick scooters. Talk about some of the different characteristics of the vehicle, differences in how they can be operated on sidewalk versus in street. So we'd encourage you all to, if you would like to come and be a part of that and see as I mentioned, our first will be December 14th at 2 o'clock in Palm Beach Boca Raton. The second event will be in Palm Beach Gardens
Okay.
on January 11th at 1:30. So you should be able to see both of those online. I'll send that out to the committees today after we conclude, and you'll have all that information. So I wanted to thank the Healthcare District of Palm Beach County staff for partnering with us on those events. And if anybody else is interested, please give us a holler. Boca Raton at REI. It's actually unincorporated Boca Raton, but Glades Road West. Yep.
Okay. I think that's great. I think there needs to be more education and outreach regarding e-bikes and e-scooters. There was a recent accident in Jupiter.
Crash.
I'm sorry. That's right. There's a recent crash in Jupiter that resulted in the death of a 14-year-old boy named Steven. And he was, we see these young people on these e-bikes, and they need more instruction on following the traffic laws, because they just see opportunities and they take them, and they take risks because, their prefrontal lobe isn't all developed yet. And unfortunately, the crash that occurred was pretty tragic. So more of those, more if you can tell us about them. Those types of things would be really helpful. I mean, we should have them in every municipality because they're rampant, the e-bikes. So thank you.
Can tell you the bikes, the scooters, they don't always come up in detection from a signal detection point of view. So sometimes they sit there and just sit at a red light and don't get detected. So then they decide, well, I'm going to go. And that's when accidents happen. So it's also up to maintaining agencies and the traffic engineers to try to purchase equipment that will do that type of detection with all of those, with all the new e-bikes and all the scooters coming, people using them now. A lot of types of vehicle detection does not detect those types of modes of transportation, because we have had lots of complaints in the city of Boca, and we've had to try to do things to get those people detected when they come to a traffic signal. So,
Thanks, Trace. Joel?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to partner up on this injury prevention initiative. We see that as these multimodal devices are rising, the use of that, we also unfortunately see injuries rising associated with that. So being able to partner with this education series is very vital. If there's any other municipalities or community partners that want to do that, we're more than happy to come out, do a lecture on it, bring stats. We're also able to do helmet fittings, so we can assist in that as well. But again, thank you for that opportunity. And that's just part of one of the many injury preventions that we offer at the healthcare district. So bicycles, vehicular, we do car seats, we all different types of things. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to just continuing that.
We were looking forward to hosting one with Jupiter, but we have the Safe Streets Summit that conflicted with one of your community fairs, Madam Chair. So let us
Okay.
know when we can work with you all in your police department on getting that rescheduled.
I will contact them. And I know we've done some outreach, but I think some more with the police, but I think more hands-on, more fun, like REI is fun, that's kind of stuff is fun. So yeah, I look forward to seeing more of it, and we'll be in contact. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize that was omitted from the liaison report.
Oh, Fadi? Thank you.
They invited everyone, the county and others. And they had a program to go to high school and talk to them. And, basically providing some information for students and others about safety. And we used to have like a table, put some video about crashes, have some information to distribute, and we used to go during the lunch break. But I think that stopped about 2 years ago. But I would really welcome if there's something that we can, have it in a kind of more formal way. They used to have a schedule every year with school they're gonna go when and so forth. I think information at this point becoming very important, especially that we have a new mode of transportation and we need to pay more attention about electric bike, like scooters and so forth.
Great, thank you. We'll follow up with Safe Kids, Palm Beach County, and the healthcare district on that note. That's a really good point. We do reach out and interact with the school district at the start of every year to train PE teachers on the resources available for safe walking, safe biking. But that I think is limited to elementary schools largely. So we can reach out and talk about, if there's a high school curricula that's available to expand that effort. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that's everything.
If I can add real quick, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So we're actually still
I'm doing a
active
good-
in those types of programs. We just did one last month in some of the comprehensive schools in Palm Beach County. One of the great benefits with the healthcare district is that we actually employ the school nurses in all the schools in Palm Beach County. So we partner up with them as well, along with fire rescue and other community partners such as Safe Kids and Safety for Life for doing reenactment. We bring Trauma Hawk out to the high schools and do a pretty big reenactment on car, especially around the prom area, or prom time. But to your, just to add, we're definitely on it. It's just a matter of getting to, the different schools. We have, I don't know the number of schools in Palm Beach County off the top of my head, but it's just a matter of getting, through that. But we are still active doing that.
Good. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that.
Okay. So, Bruce?
Yes. I would like to add a suggestion into the safety discussion. I had the opportunity to speak with a number of classes at one of our Palm Beach elementary schools. I was invited to speak by the Head Smart program. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with this. There are a couple of women, or a few women from our bike club who've unfortunately suffered some losses through accidents on their bicycles. But they've been going through elementary schools and doing a video presentation extolling the benefits of wearing helmets, not just for riding bicycles, but for scooters and all these other types of motorized little vehicles that you find young kids riding. From the outset of each meeting, the kids are asked who wears a helmet when they ride their bike, and there's maybe 2 or 3 out of 20 or 30 students. And then after they're given the presentation, they're asked again, now what do you think? The key point that they make is they draw an analogy. Who's got a cell phone? Everybody raises their hands. They said, anything you use in your cell phone to protect it? Everybody. We got a safety case for it. And they said, well, what's the most important thing in your body? Your brain, maybe? You think maybe you should have something to protect that. You got much more information in there than you do on your cell phone. Much more, makes more sense. So there's, a few points made, and there's discussions with, in the video with some inner city kids who, skateboard and do electric scooters and stuff. And then there's a pretty healthy agreement that, yeah, we should be wearing helmets. This is the kind of thing that seems perfect to have a representative come to like this meeting at REI and just make a quick note. So I can give you the contact information for all that
Let's touch base
for
before we
whoever would like it. And it was an unbelievable experience. I told these women that it was in my top 3 experiences since I've been cycling for the last 25 years. Kids were really, really anxious and to get their helmets. We had a display of, maybe 30 different, multicolored, cool helmets. The biggest drawback they saw is, you look stupid, you look like a nerd and stuff. And they go, oh, but that one looks cool. So.
The first event that we held in Gardens in June, the participant that won the giveaway from REI actually used that to buy a helmet for their 16-year-old who they just purchased an e-bike for. So we thought that was really meaningful takeaway.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. Casey?
So yeah, I was just wondering if you were going to be focusing on safety at that REI presentation, because I have a 14-year-old I might
Yes,
want to
absolutely.
bring, if that's, or is it more of a discussion about the modes of transportation?
It's both. It's we talked a little bit about how popular e-bikes and e-scooters have become. Behind the Tesla Model 3 and the Model Y, an electric bicycle is the 3rd most popular electric vehicle purchased in the United States. So we talk about that. We talk about how electric bicycles and electric scooters are different from the typical vehicle. Then we get into the data of, the crashes that are happening to try to demonstrate. We actually do talk about the human anatomy and how it impacts of crashes from the brain. If you are just falling from a typical crash, like let's say if you go off the curb and you do have a fall, versus how impact from a motor vehicle would impact you. So that's to draw attention to how, you are operating the vehicle. And then we talk about how you can operate an e-bike safely compared to a normal bicycle. The main thing that people don't get is how quick you can get to go on those vehicles. You quickly hit the 20 or 28 mile per hour speed limit for a class 1 to 4 bicycle in a very short amount of time, which is great if you're going on a street with lots of stop signs. But if you're on a street where there's lots of curb cuts and you're moving at 20 miles per hour, there are 2 pretty common types of crashes with respect to biking and e-scooters, and that's people crossing the road at unmarked, unsignalized intersections, so mid-block, and then also on curb ramps where there's vehicle access points. And so if bicycles are moving faster, you're probably unlikely to be seen, or at least your brain cognitively able to respond in enough time to stop. So we go through all of it. We try to make it a little fun. We try to make it a little interactive. We do show different helmets. We show a crashed helmet if they have one on hand at REI. I don't have any on my personal collection, but we go through what you should wear and everything that you should know about if you wanted to, ride and use it safely. So please, if you could, share the information, and I look forward to partnering with some of you on some of these events.
Great. Thank you. So I think so that we have the administrative items, which are in items 4A through C. Our next meeting is February 6th. So,
Madam Chair, I think Joanne has a comment.
oh. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I think that's it. So if we don't have anything else, Michael?
Is this working? Yeah, good. I just wanted to say that this will most likely be my last meeting here in the committee. I got another job with the school district as a project coordinator.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you, with their facilities construction arm. So it's they just told me about it the week before Thanksgiving. So there's a transition period. So I'll be doing planning work as well as the new projects work. So I'm excited about that. I've been with the school district for 22 years last month from Palm Beach County, working and planning all that time, and I've enjoyed it. I've also enjoyed my time on this committee for X amount of years I've been on it. So I know we're not having a meeting January, so February you'll probably see Joelle. So just in case, I'll let you know. And I just wanted to thank everyone here, for the opportunity to sit on this committee. I'm not going anywhere, but I'll be in a different capacity at the school district. So you can still reach out to me, and I'll most likely see some of you at the school sites where we're doing, minor and major projects. And I'm looking forward to the next step in my career.
So that's why you were calling us for some changes to the school. Congratulations, and yes.
Thank you for your service, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yay. Yay. Good for you. Okay. Now, is everyone ready to go? I think so. Can so I guess we're adjourned, and we'll have everyone have a good holiday and Happy New Year, and we'll see you in February ready to go, right? Thanks, everybody.